These are 5 car problems your mechanic quietly hopes you never learn to diagnose. Not because they're complicated, but because the moment you can recognize them, yourself, that diagnostic fee at the bottom of the invoice stops making any sense. Here's something most drivers never stop to think about. The average diagnostic test in the United States runs between $40 and $100 for a basic scan, and it climbs past $250 for anything a shop calls comprehensive. RepairPal, the pricing benchmark the repair industry itself uses, puts the labor cost of diagnosing a single check engine light somewhere between $122 and $233. And a surprising amount of the time, what you are paying for is something you could have figured out in your own driveway in about 10 minutes. That is the uncomfortable truth sitting at the center of this video. A diagnosis and a repair are 2 completely different things. You will always need a professional for the hard repairs, and there is no shame in that. But the diagnosis, the part where someone simply tells you what is wrong, is often far simpler than the price tag makes it sound. So let's walk through the 5 problems where knowing just a little bit puts you back in the driver's seat. The first one is the check engine light, and it might be the single most profitable piece of orange plastic ever installed on a dashboard. When that light flicks on, most drivers feel a small wave of dread, and they drive straight to a shop. What they don't realize is that the car's onboard diagnostic system has already done the hard part. It has detected the fault and stored a code that points directly at the problem. Reading that code is not a specialist skill. It is a 30-second task that anyone can do. You can buy a basic OBD2 scanner for as little as $20. It plugs into a port that sits just beneath your steering column on virtually every car built since 1996. Plug it in, turn the key, and it hands you a code. And if you don't even want to spend the $20, plenty of auto parts stores will read that code for you for free, right there in their parking lot. Here is the part the shop would rather keep quiet. One of the most common reasons a check engine light comes on is something almost embarrassingly small, a loose or cracked gas cap. That cap is part of your fuel system seal, and when it isn't tight, the car notices and lights up the dash. Tighten it, drive for a day, and the light often clears itself. Knowing that one fact alone can save you a $100 diagnostic fee for a problem that cost you nothing and 10 seconds to fix. The second problem is the car that won't start, and the question hiding inside it that mechanics love to charge you to answer. Is it the battery, or is it the alternator? This is one of the most misdiagnosed problems in the entire automotive world, and it is the reason so many drivers replace a perfectly good battery only to break down again 2 weeks later. The truth is, you can answer this question yourself with a tool that costs about $15. It's called a multimeter, and every driver should own one. Here is how it works. With the engine completely off, touch the multimeter to your battery terminals. A healthy, fully charged battery should read about 12.6 volts. If it reads below 12.2, your battery is weak. Now start the engine and check again. With the engine running, that number should jump up to somewhere between 13.7 and 14.7 volts. That rise is the alternator doing its job, charging the battery back up. So follow the logic. If the voltage stays low and never climbs while the engine runs, your alternator is the problem. If the battery simply won't hold a charge at rest, the battery is the problem. 2 minutes of testing, and you have an answer that a shop might otherwise fold into a full charging system diagnostic. You walk in already knowing which part you need, and that completely changes the conversation. The third problem is one you diagnose not with a tool, but with your own foot. It's brake pedal pulsation. Pay attention the next time you brake firmly. If you feel a rhythmic shudder or vibration pushing back through the brake pedal, that is your car telling you something specific. In most cases, that pulsing means your brake rotors have warped, or your brake pads are wearing unevenly and starting to fail. The vibration happens because the pad is no longer meeting a smooth, flat surface as the wheel spins. Now, why does it matter that you can feel this yourself? Because brakes are an area where shops make a great deal of money, and a vague complaint, like "my brakes feel weird," often turns into a quote for a complete brake overhaul. But when you can walk in and say, "Pressy, Seely, I feel a pulsation through the pedal under hard braking," you've narrowed the problem yourself. You have signaled that you know the difference between worn pads, warped rotors, and a problem somewhere else entirely. That precision protects your wallet, because a mechanic is far less likely to oversell a customer who clearly understands what their own car is doing. The fourth problem is the car that pulls to one side, and the uneven tire wear that usually comes with it. If you have to keep a slight, constant pressure on the steering wheel just to drive in a straight line, your car has a pull. And here is where drivers lose money. They assume a pull always means an expensive alignment, so they book one without checking anything first. Sometimes that's the answer, but very often, the real cause is something that costs nothing at all, a single underinflated tire. So before you pay anyone, do two things yourself. First, check the air pressure in all 4 tires against the number. Print it on the sticker inside your driver's door frame. An underinflated tire alone can drag a car to one side. Second, become a tire reader, because your tires keep an honest record of what is happening underneath the car. Wear along both outer edges of a tire points to underinflation. Where concentrated down the center strip points to overinflation. And where on only one side of the tread, just one edge, is the real fingerprint of an alignment or suspension problem. Learn to read those 3 patterns, and you'll know whether you genuinely need an alignment before a single dollar leaves your pocket. You stop guessing, and you stop paying for guesses. The 5th problem is the one that scares drivers the most, and that fear is exactly what makes it so profitable. It's a transmission that feels like it's slipping. The word transmission alone is enough to make most people brace for a repair bill in the thousands. And because of that fear, it is one of the easiest problems in the world. LD to be oversold on. So let's take the fear apart by understanding what slipping actually feels like. A genuine transmission slip has a very particular signature. You press the gas, and the engine's RPMs climb, the engine gets louder, it sounds like it's working harder, but the car doesn't accelerate the way that sound promises. The power and the speed have come unhooked from each other. You might also feel a delay when you shift into drive, or a hard lurch between gears, or a whining sound that wasn't there before. In some cases, you'll catch a faint burning smell. Here is what the shop hopes you skip. Many automatic cars still have a transmission fluid dipstick, often near the back of the engine bay, and checking it is no harder than checking your oil. You're looking at 2 things. The level, because transmission fluid that has run low will absolutely cause slipping symptoms. And the condition. Healthy transmission fluid is a clean red or pink color. If what you pull out is dark brown and carries a burnt smell, the fluid is cooked. That distinction matters enormously. A low or degraded fluid level is a comparatively minor service. A truly failing transmission is a major repair. They can feel similar from the driver's seat, but they are worlds apart on the invoice. A driver who has already checked their own fluid walks into that conversation impossible to panic and impossible to easily upsell. So let's bring this back to where we started. None of this is about avoiding mechanics, and it is certainly not about pretending you can rebuild an engine in your garage this weekend. Good mechanics are worth every dollar they charge for skilled repair work. This is about one simple shift in power. A loose gas cap, a $15 voltage test, a pulse through a brake pedal, the wear pattern on a tire, the color of transmission fluid. 5 small pieces of knowledge, and not one of them requires a single mechanical skill. What they require is attention. The driver who notices these things is a different kind of customer. They don't walk into a shop frightened and uninformed, ready to agree to whatever lands in front of them. They walk in already holding half the answer. And a customer who holds half the answer is a customer who almost never overpays. That is the real reason these 5 problems made the list. Not because they are hard, but because they are easy. And because the gap between how easy they are and how much they can cost you is exactly where your money quietly disappears. Close that gap and you take it back. If this saved you a future repair bill, do me one favor and subscribe, because the next video covers the warning signs that tell you a used car is hiding an expensive secret long before you ever hand over the money.